I found sometimes if I get ahead of myself, or when I thought, oh, the leads that are coming in are not the leads I was expecting, it's nice to ground myself in, okay, here are actionable items I can do in the meantime to keep this moving forward.
Yeah, I've compared entrepreneurship to like it's a semi-blindfolded like moving forward game. Like you get this blindfold on that you can sort of see out of, and it's like, all right, I can see 10 feet forward, and I can't see up there, and you bump into stuff. I mean, that's really the way this process is. Hey there, in this video, you're going to get to sit in on a coaching conversation between me and a real investor from Southern California. His name's Scott Palmer, who is looking to buy some properties in North Carolina. And we're going to go through a conversation where he talks about his challenges, the steps he's trying to take to buy his first property, the kind of struggles he's taking mentally about what do I need to do next? What are some of the concerns I have? And I actually give him some homework at the end of the call as well. So you get to kind of like a fly on the wall, get to observe this call and see what it's really like to take those first steps to buy a property, more particularly long distance. If you like this kind of call, I plan to do more of them. Be sure to leave a comment below, like the video, share it with your friends. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you don't miss anything. Now, let's go to the conversation with Scott. Yeah, well, this is fun. You're the first in a series that I'm hoping will take hold in the podcast, where I interview people and who are students of my real estate start school class, and we kind of dig into the real world of real estate investing and what you're working on. But before we dig into that, I'd love for you just, if you don't mind, just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and then we could go from there.
Sure, absolutely. So I am on the West Coast. I'm out here in Los Angeles, born and raised. I have a beautiful family. So it's me, my wife, and we have two daughters, a 2-year-old, and we just welcomed our second. She's 7 weeks.
Oh, congrats.
On 8 weeks. Yeah, so very exciting time, and thought, let's make it a little more interesting, and try and start a real estate business.
Young parents are always kind of like in a crazy place where things are always going all over and you're not sleeping. So why not just throw a business on? I mean, you're already kind of sleep deprived, right?
Yeah, exactly. So have long been interested in the industry. I like it lends itself to entrepreneurship. There's plenty of accessibility for a one-person show, kind of trying to start yourself, pick yourself up by the bootstraps without maybe having to reach out or have large amounts of capital or networks prior to starting. So that's what's interested me, and needed some focus. Have spent some time going down different internet rabbit holes and was kind of all over the place. And so taking your classes really helped to kind of narrow, what am I looking to do? What are my next steps? And how do I move forward to do this?
Great. Well, talk to me about that. So I know, you're familiar with the framework of what I try to go through with the steps in the course, but a lot of what I'm going to just list them out just for people to listen to. I start off with finding your target market, or actually before that, like the 0 step is kind of getting focused on a strategy. Like, what's your approach? What, are you a house hacker? Are you a long distance renter? Are you a long distance landlord? Are you a local landlord? Are you a flipper? So that's kind of step 0. Step 1 is your target market, right?
Yeah. So I definitely had to start at step 0. I was happy there was the, pre-course Find Your Focus, because I found that very valuable. Because had looked, kind of thought about different ways to get into it. I think everyone gets, sees the HGTV and thinks, oh, I could flip, and that sounds exciting. And you see the beautiful kind of output. So it kind of gone down that path. My wife's an architect, so kind of thought, oh, maybe that makes sense. But have always initially been interested in, buy and hold rentals. My parents have a couple properties, so, was familiar with it from that perspective. And going into it, had the issue, West Coast real estate is through the roof. anywhere in Los Angeles, you're kind of just starting at 600,000 and that's a minimum. So that just makes it, like you say in some of your courses, you can make it work anywhere. You can find your niche and you can make deals happen, but I think it was just too big of a hurdle for just getting started. So then I looked in and decided, okay, I want to go long distance, buy and hold for rentals. And that just in and of itself is kind of scary, and so it was very helpful. Here's what you look for. Here are, different market indicators that you can kind of narrow your focus. So I found that really helpful.
Cool. So that's a good point to jump off here, that you've got to focus. You're interested in rentals. You have a full-time job as an accountant. So you're busy. You got a little bit of time on the side, but you have young kids, your wife's busy. So you've evaluated your life and what your resources are available, time, otherwise. And you've said, all right, long distance, being a landlord, owning a rental property or two, that's a good fit for me. And then you're kind of progressing from there. And that's a message I think a lot of people that can help them focus, is that you take it one step at a time, and you've now gotten to this step, and let's kind of jump off from there of figuring out, all right, I know my strategy. Where do I go from here? Like, where do I invest? Los Angeles isn't a great fit for me just based on the amount of capital I have. So talk to me about like where you are in your thought process on where you should invest.
Absolutely. So, one thing that we went over in the course was some different metrics you can use. One of the helpful ones I found was, and excuse me if I get it wrong, but gross rent multiplier, I think. Right. Yep. So that being, having lower capital, that one was kind of a first filter to see where do I want to go. The reason I'm not in Los Angeles is it's too expensive. So I want to go, where's an affordable place where people are still renting. So I looked at that and kind of filtered down from there. Some helpful things that I saw, we talked about, there was a U-Haul moving survey. And so it was, okay, where are the trends of where are people going? And one of the other things I liked is you've spoken, some of the other students when we have our live calls, talk about, here's my thesis. And you kind of, you take a stance and you research it. And one of them is, this pandemic has kind of highlighted, hey, do I need to live in the big city? Do I need to be in LA, in Chicago, in New York, San Francisco, et cetera? And I think there already was a trend where people are finding, other cities are growing faster. Some of the smaller cities are playing catch up. And so that was my thesis, went down that road. I found I really liked the numbers that Raleigh was spitting out.
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Raleigh, North Carolina. So then I had posted in the community actually like, hey, I kind of am like jumping into one place and then panicking and thinking like, do I want to do this? And the reassurance was, you aren't committing anything, pick one, kind of just do it. And, you haven't spent any money, you haven't put any capital in, you can always change 3 months down the road if it ends up not being the right place. So with that, so that's where I dove in, and I've actually kind of moved around a bit. So I started at Raleigh, still am looking there, have also pivoted. I found the numbers I liked in the Piedmont Triangle area. So you got Greensboro, Winston-Salem. So that is currently where I'm focusing my energy.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So you've got at least a hunting ground or a place where you think, and you did, I like the way you talked about, used a couple of metrics, and there's things like gross rent multiplier, saying the ratio of the rent to the price of properties. That's a kind of a real rough gauge of, the relationship between price and rent. And it's not only that LA is expensive, it's that the price to rent ratio, like if the rent were just as high as the prices, it might be okay. Like if you got $5,000 a month in rent on a $500,000, $600,000 house, that'd be one thing, but you're getting $2,000 in rent on a $600,000 house. And that Whereas if you go to some other parts of the country where there's a little different rent to price ratio, you might get a $2,000 rent on a $200,000 house or a $200,000 duplex or something. So
Exactly.
yeah. So, okay. So you're hunting in a place that has a little bit more grounding with cash flow, which is your priority. You want to get a little bit more cash flow.
Correct.
Talk to me about some of the other challenges, the other things that you're thinking, maybe something is there anything I can help you out with some of these next steps you're looking at?
So the main hurdle, and it was kind of in the back of my mind the whole time, and it was helpful, going through the modules, going through the steps. There's always action steps that, I felt, okay, I'm accomplishing things. I reached out to different agents. I found someone I liked, got a MLS listing sent to me every morning. But the hurdle I am approaching with long distance is, how do I find the deal? So I'm looking at the MLS, and this is all retail, full value. They're beautiful homes, nice areas, but it's just not going to have the cash flow that I am looking for. And so, I love the idea of, driving for dollars, walking for dollars, et cetera. And you can't do that long distance. So I spent Saturday night just diving into email, anyone who had an email address, anyone who had a property listing, I think some of these sites probably got 4 different emails from me because I didn't realize I'd already been on their site before. So it's the concern I have is, am I going to just end up with either full price MLS or the deals that no one else wanted, and that's why I found them online?
Got it. So you're kind of second guessing yourself about the deal itself and saying, all right, is this going to be a good deal? So good. I got a question for you then. Let's take a step back and talk. What does it mean to have a good deal for you?
Absolutely. So the important metric is I do want a cash flowing property. I actually have it highlighted. So I am working on my target property profile. And I have my metrics that I'll keep to myself, but what I have in mind, I have exactly what the cash flow I am targeting as highlighted. I think I just need to follow the math through, but I'm looking at target cap rate 6% I think that's achievable. I see deals there that have it already. I'm looking for, I think the 1% rule is achievable as well. So I don't think these are stretch goals by any means in the area I chose, which is part of the reason I chose it. So I think it's a matter of I need to figure out how much cash I want per unit, or in this case, if I do get a single family home as opposed to a duplex for the house. Got
it. So when you say, this is a good question, because I hear a lot of people say, I want a property that cash flows. And there's different ways of measuring that. Like but the bottom line is like, hey, I'm every month I have this much rent coming in. I have this many projected expenses. I've got this mortgage payment. I want to have a certain amount of cash flow. And I mean, I'll just throw out numbers that people use. They might say, I want to have at least $200 per month on this property. Or if I have a fourplex, I want to have $100 per door, meaning $400 for the whole building. So just to give people a context of what we mean by that, is that also the kind of measurement you're looking at, like a net income after financing type number?
Exactly. Net income after financing. That's exactly where I'm focusing on.
Okay.
And on all of my, I'm kind of doing I haven't gone down too far in any of the deal analysis, but I'm using the kind of 50% expense estimate, or 50% of rent, and then going from there, adding on financing.
Right. And it's a pretty conservative one typically. So like if people heard the 50% rule, we're throwing out a lot of different terms here. So people, if you hear those, like definitely research them a little bit. But the 50% of rent, for example, we had a $1,200 rental. 50% of that would be $600 per month. And what we're saying with that, what Scott's saying is that you're just estimating that $600 per month would be gone in management fees, taxes, insurance, maintenance, capital expenses, vacancy. And so it's just a rough rule of thumb when you're doing really quick math. In the reality, like when I've looked at, and every property is different, right? But on average with a lot of my properties, I would say anywhere from 40 to 45% for some of my residential properties has been the actual expense ratio over time. So let's just take, like on a $1,000 rental, that'd be $400 to $450 per month, somewhere in there. But the criteria that you're using, Scott, is I think cash flow is a great place to start. And the 1% rule is a rough, like kind of precursor of cash flow. Like people use it because it gives you an indicator that this property might have the potential to cash flow if I do that. And actually, if you look at the 1% rule, it often translates to like a 6% cap rate as well. So they kind of work together there.
I've seen them all flow like, oh, this is yeah.
So those. I mean, I think though, if you're looking in a good location, and so this is also another assumption people have to make. Like you could go buy a property in what we call like a C-D location, which is mainly rental properties, kind of the lower price rentals, which have typically the higher cash flow, but they're often older properties. Getting a 6% cap rate or 1% rule might not actually be that good of a deal on a C-D+ kind of property. But if you're buying in a C+B kind of neighborhood, and which is like a mix of rentals and owners, maybe a little bit slightly more owners than renters, then getting a 6% cap rate or 1% rule deal was actually pretty good. Like that in a lot of markets today, like that would be a good deal. So one question I would have as a follow up to that is, are you seeing like these MLS leads you're seeing? You were kind of concerned that, hey, I'm going to pay retail price, or I'm going to find a deal that nobody else is looking for. I'm just going to get the lemon that nobody else wanted. Like, are you seeing any deals just retail that are getting close to your criteria there, your 1% rule or your 6% cap rate yet?
I have a handy dandy spreadsheet. Let me just take a look. They are not meeting it, but we're at like 0.7%, 0.8%. And so at full retail, I think it's like a lot of them, $180,000 house, $1,400 rent.
Okay. So let's do a mental exercise. Is it plausible that, if you searched, lots and lots of properties, and this isn't going to be every deal, right? But if you bought a property that's worth 180 and you bought it for 10% discount, or maybe even a 20% discount because you just found a good deal that you just happen to be somebody who's motivated or they needed a little bit of work or something, you could buy that $180,000 property for 160 or 150. You're going to get closer. So like that's what I like to do. Like I want to look at a market and say, all right, $1,400 rental, $180,000 full price. It's plausible that I could buy a property for 150 to 160. It's not going to be easy, but it's plausible. It's worth me checking out. Whereas if I looked at a market and it said they're all $300,000 properties and they rent for $1,400, I would have to buy that property at 50 cents on the dollar to even get close to that. And that wouldn't even be worth searching. It's probably just not, it doesn't make sense. I'd either have to change my approach to try to make money like on the price, like flipping houses or on the appreciation, or I just have to go to another market or a different part of town. So like if you're seeing that though, if you're seeing $180,000 houses and you've done your kind of criteria on those locations and said, yeah, this is a quality location, you check off the list of, are there parks nearby? Is this a good school district? Is there some upside potential economically? And you think it's within striking distance of like the 1% rule or something, that's really all I would need to see to say, I'm confident that I'm now going to turn up my deal finding muscles, like which is a further down the line step, like now what you want to do is like to take it to another level. I want to do some of these things you're talking about. Like I want to really get focused on my deal finding, lead generation channels, which include MLS, right? Mm-hmm. But like talking to your agent and saying, look, I really want to find the properties that have, maybe been on the market for 3 to 6 months, where they're, for some reason they started off overpriced and now they might take an offer that's less, because usually if they're listed at 180 and this only been on the market 20 days, why would they consider an offer at 150, or 160? Yeah. But if an agent's the listing's about to expire and they're like, hey, I got to present an offer to this seller. They're kind of stuck on this price. And if you could come in and make a lower offer, it's not a guarantee, but my advice always with negotiating is it's a numbers game. And so you got to have lots of conversations. You got to get ready to make 10 offers or 15 offers on properties in order to get that one. And how do you find properties to make offers on? You got to find candidates that at least there's some kind of likelihood. There's a higher probability that situation might warrant a price that also makes sense for you, but that will also add value to that person. It might be the house needs work. It might be that they're moving quickly. It might be a pre-foreclosure. It might be a short sale. It might be a burned out landlord. Like there's all sorts of situations. And your agent who's on the ground is really important as a long distance investor, because they're the one they're your eyes and ears. They're the one who's going to help you, tell you if that really is a $1,400 rental or not. They're going to help you understand the market. They're going to go down that street and tell you if it's a good place to be on is it a B neighborhood? Is it where I'm going to attract certain kinds of tenants? So like all of those things fit together. But I think some of your fears about that will be alleviated by just getting some lead flow, getting some deal flow coming in.
Yeah. Cause I definitely, right now I'm currently on two, and it was something I, wanted to ask you about, but I'm kind of at two ends of the spectrum. I've got MLS, full retail. And I did send the question to my agent. I said, do you have a expired or stale listings lead, a listing that you could send? Her response was she'll keep an eye out, but typically homes are not lasting on the market. So I think that sounds plausible with it's a hot real estate market right now. So I've got that on one end of the spectrum. And then in my, trying to reach out and network, finding wholesalers, property listings, the local real estate investment association, those seem to be C-D properties with great cash flow or great cap rates. I definitely, when I first punched the numbers in and I was like, well, this is amazing. But, then I had to say, okay, no, there's a reason I don't, I would like, C could go into B or B areas. I'd like a little appreciation potential, right, which I don't think I would be getting on the other end.
Got it. So let's take a step back there, because I like what you've got the MLS coming in, you've got your agent who's sending you leads. She's a resource that you can bounce ideas off of. You've also expanded that to some other channels, which include looking at your local real estate investor association, which is like a local meetup group that talks about real estate and educates real estate investors. And you've been getting on some wholesale lists. Now, the thing with those, you do get a lot of, you're going to get some just junky properties. You're going to get some deals that don't look that good. But I kind of see it as kind of like the MLS. Like you only need one. Like you don't, and so I think you're doing the right thing. Like I'm just encouraging you that this is a muscle that you've got to train every day. It's almost like running a marathon or something. You just, every day you've got to do your training, and the training of buying good deals is looking at leads and looking at leads and looking at leads almost till you're sick of it, where you're like, man, I've looked at hundreds of properties, to where you'll know you're there, you're getting close, Scott, when it's really intuitive that you see a property and it stands out if it's a good deal. Like you're like, oh, that's one of my D properties. They rent for $600. People are selling them for $500, $50,000. Like, okay, that's one type of deal. Oh, here's my $180,000 property that rents for $1,400. That's another kind of deal. But then all of a sudden you get one that's like, wow, that's a $1,200 rental that's on the market for $100,000. Like, ooh, that one stands out. And it's just gonna be so familiar because because you paid your dues of looking at dozens and dozens and dozens of deals. That's really where you got to get to. And there's no shortcuts. It's just get those lists going, get the leads coming in. And are you comfortable that you've kind of gotten to a point recently where that you can start doing that pretty consistently?
I do, because one of the things is I actually went and added up all of the properties I've looked at the last couple of weeks. I'm over 300 properties I've, put in my spreadsheet and looked up the rent and found, comps on Zillow. So it's, not too hard, but
yeah,
looked at them and I feel comfortable where I was like, oh, I recognize what I'm getting from this source. I recognize what I'm getting from these sources. And I even narrowed, okay, these are I think of the 300 I highlighted, 10 that I was like, oh, these make sense. I like these numbers. home looks good because I've got on my target profile minor updates, minor rehab. I'm not trying from long distance to tear down to the studs, especially without already building a network of a contractor I've worked with on some minor things. So finding houses that fit that bill, I think there was about 10 I'm at that I liked.
So good. That was my next question. So what happened with those 10? Did you kind of just go through the exercise of looking at them? Did you actually call on them? What happened there?
So I have reached out on 3 of them. One of the issues is I am this course and kind of getting started. I know I didn't think it was going to be okay. Take the course, look at some properties, wire someone hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
So I still do need to get my financing lined up. I have a plan. I've informally talked to some of my banking relationships. So I have that in order, but I'm not ready to, for some of these deals, it's cash. It's hard money, cash only, want to close in a week type situation. So I'm not there where I'm ready to do that, but going through the routine of looking at the numbers, reaching out to the person saying, hey, is it, what if I come in at this? Can you let me know if you don't hear anyone or if your pending sale falls through, can you reach back out to me? I'm interested. So I've done that for 3 of them. And that's where I'm at currently.
Okay, good. So you've kind of taken a running start, you've gotten going, and then there's a few more things, particularly the financing is getting that finalized. And so if I remember right, you have some cash you've saved. You also might use like a line of credit. Is that right? To build
that,
up? Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. So that's my plan, is use a line of credit. Ideally the thought is, and this would be a question is it something people do? Does this make sense? But I would use the line of credit so I can close quickly on a deal, maybe find one of these deals where, hey, we want cash, we want to close in a week, blah, blah, blah. So the line of credit would let me do that. And then once I have the property, I can get a long-term mortgage on it and pay off the line of credit.
Yeah. I think I do think that's a good strategy. There's some benefits there. You can probably get how much of a discount you don't know, but I think you can get the best discount possible if you really can move quickly without a financing contingency. So that's beneficial. The downside, and let's talk about this, because I'm sensing a little bit this might be a concern, because it's been a concern for other people too, is that you've got this money, but for you to wire money across country to the East Coast to buy some property, there's still some reservation there, right? And so talk to me about that, because I think this might be a good follow-up when we have our next call. There might be some homework around these steps. Like one step, obviously, to get the financing. So like, let's write that down. Like, let's work on getting that to, no matter, even if you don't do a deal, let's at least get that ready so that you have the money in your pocket lined up, so to speak. So that's one thing. But the other, talk to me about if you did have the money today and this deal fell in your lap that was just, it looks like a great deal. Like what other impediments or mental kind of hurdles would we need to get over for you to send the money to them?
Understanding the due diligence better, and having a trustworthy relationship of someone who can go inspect the property.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. So when you say due diligence, and you mean like just knowing what you don't know, like what are the things that I should know, or the red flags that should pop up that I'm just missing so I don't screw this thing up? Is that accurate, or am I putting words in your mouth there?
No, that is, I think high level that's accurate, but am I going to get, title insurance? Is it a clean title? Who, especially looking into wholesales for the first time,
right?
Who's actually the seller?
Yeah.
How does assigning a contract work?
Yep.
And I think the one detail specifically that I wasn't familiar with prior was earnest money deposit. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I was unfamiliar with that term, and so I don't want to enter into a deal and then that cost me $5,000.
No. Okay, good. Well, I think that, tell me what you think, but there is a couple other homework items that I think would be good, and they involve your team members here again. Because I'll just say, like, every step of the way in my own real estate investing business, and there are days I feel like a beginner all the time, and team members are the ones who I can borrow confidence from. Like, in real estate, it's such a team sport, and when it comes to due diligence, there are a couple key team members, and you're investing in a new state. North Carolina is a new state for you. Like, I think having a real estate attorney who can you can buy an hour of their time or two, and go over a contract with you and say, hey, here's what you need to watch out for. Here's what it means in North Carolina. Get your realtor to give you a standard like real estate contract that they're going to use when you make offers, and just have that ready. Hire an attorney there, and she could probably recommend a good real estate attorney or whoever you feel comfortable with. Mm-hmm. But like, I don't know about what you think, but that spending an hour or two with that person to go over the contract, to make sure you understand what it means, what the earnest money is, when you lose your earnest money, when you don't, that's time well spent. I mean, you're going to be educated within an hour of some of the big deals and on the contract like that. I think I would do that if I were you.
Yep. But that makes a lot of sense.
The other thing, though, is, and this is your agent, again, might be your team member who can kind of point you in the right direction, a property inspector and or a contractor who can help you look at the physical part of the property and if nothing else, you're always going to miss something. Like, you're going to make some mistakes. Like, I make mistakes 18 years later. I'm still missing stuff every once in a while, but you don't want to miss the big stuff. Like, you just want to make sure, hey, is this foundation that could cost me $30,000, $40,000 to fix? Is this solid? Is this plumbing that, on this old house in decent shape, so I don't have to spend $5-10 to fix that? Like, an inspector and or a contractor can help you, and they have a standard form they go through where they give you pictures of everything. And I would also interview a couple inspectors, ask them what the process is, tell them you're getting ready to buy a property, or multiple properties, investment properties, to see which one you feel comfortable with. Like, and this is just like anything else. You're in the accounting business. You've run, audit teams before. Like, so you've run teams. Now you're hiring a different team. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're long distance, you're not going to go out of this property. Perhaps, maybe you will. Maybe you'll fly out there at some point. But they're going to be the people that you have to trust. That's a big leap of trust. Like, I know it can make everybody nervous, but I have not looked at properties and hired inspectors, hired contractors, hired attorneys. I'm still driving the boat. Like, I'm still the one who says, please do this for me, do this for me. Like, you're always in charge, but the team members are the ones you borrow confidence from in their specialty, whether it's legal specialty, the property condition specialty, the closing attorney. In North Carolina, they use closing attorneys. They're the ones who are going to give you title insurance on the property, and that's really important since you don't have a bank. A bank would require you to get title insurance, but in this case, you're going to get owner's title insurance, and you're going to want to make sure that they've put the property title through the ringer, and they can guarantee that the price you paid for that, if there were some weird, title issue or title flaw, that you would be covered for that. That's the kind of a piece. That's the most important peace of mind thing in closing when you're spending all your money. But there are a lot of stuff, and I have a due diligence checklist that you're welcome to use. And actually, anybody who's listening to this can get it. That's at the end of every podcast episode. I talk about my checklist, my closing checklist. It has a lot of the things that we're talking about here on that, just as a reminder. So as you get there, definitely print that out, use it on your computer. I still use it today just to make sure I have it. Every time I forget something, I add it on there. Oh, I forgot to get insurance for that, or I forgot to get a policy binder before closing, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think about that? I mean, so tell me in your own words, because I would like us to follow up on a couple things, like but I'm seeing it as get the money lined up. Yep. And take some more steps to make sure you're confident about when because you know how to run the numbers. You run numbers for a living. You're good at that spreadsheet stuff. But I'm sensing there's some other things that we need to check off the list first before we get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the personal side, I was finishing up refinance on my primary, so needed to wait for that to go through. before I'm going out getting more financing. Banks don't really like that. So once I get that closed and funded, then I'll be turning right back around and asking him for more money. That should be done fairly shortly. And at the very least, I can start saying, hey, can I set up HELOC with you and getting that started.
And part two of that, I don't mean to interrupt you there, but part two is the takeout financing. When you're ultimately going to refinance it, that's not going to be the first step, but it would be nice to have peace of mind knowing that you have a lender who can loan you the money on the takeout, on the refinance too, and talk to them up front. So that might be a local lender. Sometimes if you're in LA, the mortgage broker or the bank in LA might not want to loan money on a property in Winston-Salem. Maybe they will. I mean, I don't know. It depends on your bank, but that's another relationship with the banker. If you talk to your local real estate investing club, put it out there on that list, or Bigger Pockets forums for the local forums. Hey, I'm looking for a local mortgage broker who understands investment products for rental properties on refinancing rental properties. You got any names? And then you just call these people. Who are you comfortable with? Ask them questions. That would be another step you can work on.
Okay, perfect. And then, I think I will start with my agent and ask her if she has any recommendations for real estate attorney and property inspector.
Great. I like it.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
You got a full to-do list for a little while, right?
Yep, absolutely. So great. No, feels good because I found sometimes if I get ahead of myself, or when I thought, the leads that are coming in are not the leads I was expecting, it's nice to ground myself in, okay, here are actionable items I can do in the meantime to keep this moving forward.
Yeah. I've compared entrepreneurship to it's a semi-blindfolded, moving forward game. You get this blindfold on that you can sort of see out of, and it's all right, I can see 10 feet forward and I can't see up there, and you bump into stuff. I mean, that's really the way this process is. You've bumped into your financing. All right, take my blindfold off, fix that. You bump into, I'm a little nervous about getting inspections. All right, I need to take care of that. But until you jumped into it and started looking at leads, you would have not been that confident that you had some need to do that in the first place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Well, great. Was there anything else kind of pressing on your mind, Scott, in the meantime?
No, I think that covered everything up to date. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we'll plan on following up. I know, and kind of we'll figure out offline what the time limit is on how long those will take. But we'll definitely have another call and see how everything comes together for you.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for watching my coaching call with Scott Palmer. What'd you think? Is that something that's helpful for you? Did you get anything out of it? What were your main takeaways or ideas? I would love to hear from you in the comment section below. And if you like this channel in general, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you don't miss anything. I have new episodes that come out every Friday, and also have a playlist that I think you'll like if you like these interviews and kind of practical tips about real estate investing. I've got a playlist below that has other interviews and other tips on how to invest in real estate, how to get started. And I think you might like that as well. Thank you so much for watching Coach Carson TV. My name is Chad Carson. You can call me Coach. And this channel is all about investing in real estate, achieving financial independence, and doing more of what matters. See you next time.